Emotional control is not something that magically appears one day. It's a skill, a neurological skill that you can train and refine each day. The brain is remarkably plastic, meaning it can change, adapt, and rewire itself in response to experience. This plasticity provides the foundation for developing emotional regulation, but it requires deliberate, consistent effort. Understanding the underlying brain circuits and mechanisms that govern emotions gives us the tools to shape our emotional landscape actively. Emotional control is fundamentally a skill shaped by the brain's remarkable ability to change and adapt its neuroplasticity. This means that the brain is not fixed or static. Instead, it continuously remodels itself based on experience and behavior. When we talk about emotional control, we are referring to the capacity of certain brain regions to regulate, modulate, and sometimes override raw emotional responses that arise in the moment. The key players in this process are the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. Understanding how these areas work together gives us insight into how emotional control can be developed and strengthened through deliberate practice. The amygdala is an ancient part of the brain responsible for detecting emotionally salient stimuli, especially those related to threat or danger. When the amygdala perceives a threat, it generates a rapid, often automatic emotional response such as fear, anxiety, or anger. This system evolved to help us survive by triggering quick reactions to danger. However, these responses can be overly sensitive or inappropriate in modern contexts, leading to exaggerated emotional reactions that interfere with our daily lives. The amygdala operates largely on a subconscious level, reacting before the conscious mind can fully assess the situation. In contrast, the prefrontal cortex, located in the front part of the brain, is the center of higher-order cognitive functions. This region is responsible for decision-making, planning, impulse control, and importantly, regulating emotional responses generated by the amygdala. The prefrontal cortex exerts top-down control over the amygdala, helping to dampen excessive emotional reactions and enable more thoughtful, context-appropriate responses. When the prefrontal cortex is effectively engaged, it allows us to pause, reflect, and choose how we respond emotionally rather than being driven by automatic impulses. The strength and efficiency of the communication between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala are crucial for emotional regulation. This communication happens through neural pathways that can be strengthened with practice, much like muscles become stronger through exercise. The more frequently and intentionally these circuits are activated, the more robust they become. This neuroplasticity is what allows emotional control to be developed over time. Importantly, emotional control is not about suppressing or ignoring emotions. Instead, it is about learning to recognize emotional signals and then engaging the cognitive resources of the prefrontal cortex to manage those signals appropriately. This process requires awareness, being able to notice emotional reactions as they arise, and the capacity to intervene before these reactions escalate into overwhelming feelings or impulsive behavior. Developing this capacity creates a feedback loop that gradually reshapes the brain's response to emotional stimuli. Several factors influence the balance of this circuit, including stress levels, sleep quality, and even genetic predispositions, but none are fixed limits. Because of neuroplasticity, deliberate training can compensate for deficits or weaknesses. The goal is to create a neural environment where the prefrontal cortex has enough control and influence to moderate the amygdala's responses effectively. This process begins with small, consistent steps. Each time you practice recognizing your emotional state and choose a measured response rather than reacting impulsively, you are reinforcing the neural pathways necessary for emotional control. Over days, weeks, and months, these circuits become more efficient, resulting in greater emotional resilience and the ability to navigate life's challenges with calmness and clarity. Becoming aware of your emotional state as it unfolds in real time is a foundational step in training your brain for emotional control. This moment-to-moment awareness allows you to recognize subtle physiological and psychological changes before they escalate into overwhelming feelings or impulsive reactions. At the neural level, this awareness engages the insular cortex, a region responsible for interoception, the brain's ability to sense the internal state of the body. Interoception provides a bridge between bodily sensations and emotional experience, helping you identify signals such as changes in heart rate, muscle tension, breathing patterns, or gut feelings that often accompany emotional shifts. When you develop the ability to notice these internal signals, you create a critical window of opportunity to influence how your brain processes and responds to emotions. Instead of being caught off guard by a surge of anxiety or anger, you begin to catch these feelings early, allowing your prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive control center, to step in and modulate the amygdala's emotional response. This early interception is key because emotional reactions tend to amplify rapidly if left unchecked. Recognizing the onset of an emotional state makes it possible to pause, assess, and choose a more adaptive response. This process is distinct from suppressing or denying emotions. Instead, it involves an accepting and curious stance toward your internal experience. By simply observing sensations without immediately reacting, you engage what is often called meta-awareness, the capacity to observe your own mind and body objectively. This skill is cultivated through practices such as mindfulness meditation or focused attention exercises, which train the brain to maintain steady awareness without becoming overwhelmed or distracted by passing thoughts and feelings. Neuroscientific research shows that strengthening interoceptive awareness enhances connectivity between the insular cortex and prefrontal areas involved in cognitive control and emotional regulation. This improved connectivity supports better integration of bodily signals into decision-making processes, which translates into more balanced emotional responses in everyday life. Essentially, the brain becomes more adept at using physical sensations as early warning signs, enabling proactive management of emotions rather than reactive behavior. Another benefit of cultivating moment-to-moment awareness is the ability to differentiate between the raw sensory components of an emotional experience and the stories or judgments that the mind layers on top. For example, you might notice a rapid heartbeat and tightness in your chest, which are bodily indicators of anxiety. However, the mind might immediately create a narrative of, "I am in danger," or "I am going to fail," which amplifies the emotional response. By recognizing and isolating the bodily sensation from the mental narrative, you reduce the intensity of the emotional reaction and create space for rational evaluation. Developing this skill also encourages a shift from a reactive mindset to a responsive mindset. In a reactive state, emotions dictate your behavior automatically, often leading to impulsive decisions or regret. In a responsive state, you can use the information from your body and mind to make conscious choices aligned with your goals and values. Over time, this leads to greater emotional resilience, improved decision-making, and a calmer internal experience. Importantly, moment-to-moment awareness is not a passive process. It requires intentional focus and regular practice. This can be cultivated through daily mindfulness practices, journaling about emotional states, or simply taking brief pauses throughout the day to check in with your internal experience. By consistently tuning into your body's signals and acknowledging your emotional state as it arises, you retrain your brain's emotional circuits to favor regulation over reactivity. Cultivating moment-to-moment awareness of your emotional state is a powerful method for gaining control over how you respond to feelings as they arise. This ability to observe emotions in real time is grounded in the brain's capacity for interoception, which is the sense of the internal state of your body. Interoception involves the insular cortex, a key brain area that processes signals from your body, such as heart rate, breathing, muscle tension, and gut sensations, and translates them into conscious feelings. By tuning into these bodily signals, you can detect the earliest signs of emotional shifts before they become overwhelming or automatic reactions. This early detection provides a critical advantage because emotions often escalate quickly if unrecognized. When you become aware of subtle changes, like a slight increase in your heart rate or shallow breathing, you create an opportunity for your brain's executive functions, primarily housed in the prefrontal cortex, to step in. The prefrontal cortex then can regulate the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, preventing an overreaction. This interaction is what allows you to experience emotions without being controlled by them, offering a space between stimulus and response where conscious choice can happen. Developing this skill requires a practice of mindful attention. Mindfulness cultivates an accepting, non-judgmental awareness of your present experience, allowing you to notice feelings as they are without immediately trying to change or suppress them. This open monitoring involves observing physical sensations, thoughts, and emotions with curiosity rather than resistance. As you build this skill, the neural pathways connecting the insular cortex and prefrontal cortex become stronger and more efficient. This neuroplastic change enhances your ability to integrate bodily sensations into cognitive control, improving emotional regulation. In addition to improving regulation, moment-to-moment awareness helps differentiate raw emotional sensations from the mental stories or interpretations that often accompany them. For instance, a sensation of tightness in the chest might be experienced as anxiety, but the mind often layers on narratives like, "I'm in danger," or "I can't handle this," which intensify the emotional response. By noticing the physical sensation separately from these cognitive interpretations, you reduce the emotional charge and prevent escalation. This separation fosters a shift from reactive to responsive behavior. Reactivity occurs when emotions trigger automatic responses, often leading to impulsive actions or regret. Responsiveness, however, allows for a pause, a moment to assess the situation and select an intentional, goal-aligned response. This shift is essential for emotional resilience, enabling you to navigate challenges with greater calm and clarity. Building moment-to-moment awareness is an active, ongoing practice. Simple exercises such as pausing periodically throughout the day to check in with your bodily sensations or emotions can build this skill. Meditation practices that emphasize body scanning or focused attention enhance interoceptive accuracy. Journaling about your emotional experiences also encourages reflection and increases awareness of patterns in your responses. Over time, these practices condition your brain to notice emotional shifts early and engage regulatory circuits effectively. By consistently tuning into your internal states and observing them without judgment, you rewire your brain to favor regulation rather than reactivity. This practice strengthens the neural mechanisms that allow the prefrontal cortex to modulate emotional responses, creating a foundation for sustained emotional control in everyday life. Controlled breathwork is one of the most accessible and effective ways to influence your brain's emotional regulation circuits. The connection between breathing and emotional state is deeply rooted in neurobiology, as the autonomic nervous system, responsible for regulating bodily functions like heart rate and digestion, is closely linked to the rhythms of respiration. Breathing serves as a direct pathway to modulate this system, allowing you to shift your physiology from a state of heightened arousal or stress into one of calm and balance. This shift supports the prefrontal cortex's ability to exert control over the amygdala, which is the brain's emotional alarm center. When you engage in slow, deliberate breathing, especially when you extend the exhale, you activate the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system. This is often called the rest and digest system, which counteracts the fight or flight response driven by the sympathetic nervous system. By consciously controlling your breath, you influence vagal tone, the activity of the vagus nerve, which plays a critical role in calming the heart and reducing inflammation. Higher vagal tone is associated with greater emotional resilience and improved ability to regulate stress. Scientific studies demonstrate that specific breathing techniques, such as box breathing, inhale, hold, exhale, hold, or cyclic sighing, taking a deep breath followed by a long exhale, can rapidly decrease heart rate and blood pressure, creating a physiological environment conducive to emotional regulation. These practices essentially reset the nervous system, interrupting stress responses and allowing the prefrontal cortex to re-engage with the amygdala in a more balanced manner. This leads to reduced feelings of anxiety, anger, or overwhelm. Regular practice of controlled breathwork not only offers immediate calming effects, but also strengthens the neural pathways involved in emotional regulation over time. By repeatedly activating the parasympathetic system through breath control, you reinforce the brain's ability to return to a state of calm more quickly after encountering stressors. This neural training enhances the efficiency of top-down control circuits that regulate emotion, making it easier to maintain composure in challenging situations. Moreover, breathwork has the advantage of being portable and accessible at any moment, unlike other emotional regulation strategies that might require a specific environment or extended time. Breathing exercises can be performed quietly and discreetly in almost any setting. This immediacy makes them powerful tools for managing acute emotional reactions as they arise, preventing escalation and allowing for more deliberate responses. Breath control also integrates with other aspects of emotional training. When combined with moment-to-moment awareness, breathwork helps anchor attention in the present moment, enhancing mindfulness and reducing rumination on past or future worries. This synergy further supports prefrontal cortex function by improving focus and reducing cognitive load, which in turn strengthens emotional regulation. Importantly, the benefits of breathwork extend beyond emotional control to overall physical health. Improved autonomic balance reduces the risk of chronic inflammation, cardiovascular disease, and other stress-related conditions. This holistic impact underscores how closely emotional regulation is tied to bodily physiology and why breath is such a fundamental lever in shaping both mind and body. Incorporating deliberate breath practices into daily routines establishes a foundation for emotional stability. With consistent effort, breathwork transforms from a simple coping mechanism into a core skill that empowers you to navigate the complexity of emotional experiences with greater ease and control. Focused attention is a critical component of emotional control because it enables you to direct your mental resources intentionally, thereby influencing how you process and respond to emotional stimuli. The brain's prefrontal cortex plays a central role in attention regulation, and by strengthening this function, you enhance your capacity to modulate emotional responses. When your attention is well trained, you can shift focus away from distressing thoughts or feelings and toward more adaptive or constructive mental states, which helps prevent emotional overwhelm and impulsive reactions. The neural mechanisms underlying focused attention involve networks of neurons that support sustained concentration, selective filtering of information, and cognitive flexibility. These networks enable you to maintain awareness on a particular object, thought, or sensation while ignoring distractions. Training this capacity builds the resilience of the prefrontal cortex circuits, enhancing their ability to exert top-down control over limbic areas such as the amygdala, which generate emotional responses. One effective way to cultivate focused attention is through mindfulness meditation practices that emphasize sustained concentration on a chosen anchor, such as the breath, body sensations, or a repeated phrase. This repeated practice not only improves the ability to hold attention, but also increases awareness of when the mind wanders. Recognizing these moments of distraction is itself a form of metacognition, allowing you to gently guide your focus back to the intended object without judgment or frustration. Over time, this cycle of distraction and refocusing strengthens neural pathways that support both attentional control and emotional regulation. Focused attention training also improves cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift your perspective or approach when faced with challenges or emotional triggers. This flexibility allows you to reinterpret situations in ways that reduce emotional intensity or enable problem solving. For example, if you notice yourself becoming anxious about an upcoming event, focused attention can help you shift your thoughts from catastrophic predictions to practical planning, thereby reducing anxiety's grip on your emotional state. The benefits of training focused attention extend beyond managing negative emotions. Enhanced attentional control can increase your capacity for positive emotional experiences by allowing you to direct attention toward gratitude, joy, or moments of calm. This selective focus helps reinforce positive neural circuits associated with well-being, creating a feedback loop that supports mental health. Importantly, focused attention is not an all or nothing skill. It exists on a continuum that can be developed progressively. Even brief daily practices of concentrated attention produce measurable changes in brain function. Studies using neuroimaging have shown increased activity and connectivity in prefrontal cortex regions following consistent attention training, which correlates with improved emotional regulation and reduced stress responses. Incorporating focused attention exercises into daily life does not require large blocks of time. Simple practices such as mindful breathing, body scans, or engaging fully in routine activities like eating or walking can help cultivate this skill. The key is consistency and intentionality. Regularly bringing your attention back to the present moment builds the neural infrastructure for emotional control. This training of attention is especially valuable in modern life, where constant distractions compete for mental resources. By deliberately strengthening focused attention, you create mental space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, improving your capacity to handle emotional challenges effectively and with greater ease. Stress inoculation is a powerful method to train the brain for improved emotional control by gradually exposing it to manageable levels of physical or mental stress. thereby strengthening regulatory circuits under pressure. This concept draws from the principle of hormesis, where small doses of stress stimulate adaptation and resilience rather than damage. By intentionally engaging with controlled stressors, you can enhance your brain's capacity to maintain balance and regulate emotions even during challenging or high-pressure situations. At the neural level, stress inoculation involves activating the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis and the autonomic nervous system in a controlled manner, followed by recovery periods that allow the brain and body to adapt. These cycles of activation and recovery strengthen neural pathways connecting the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, improving top-down control over emotional responses. Essentially, the brain learns to tolerate stress without triggering overwhelming fear or anxiety responses, increasing its overall resilience. Physical activities such as high-intensity interval training, cold exposure, or breath hold exercises as practical examples of stress inoculation. These challenges create brief, intense physiological stress that activates the nervous system and forces the brain to manage heightened arousal. Regular exposure to these stimuli trains your brain to quickly recover from stress, reducing the intensity and duration of emotional reactions to future stressors. Mental stress inoculation can be achieved through exposure to challenging cognitive tasks, controlled exposure to social stressors, or deliberately engaging with uncomfortable emotions in a safe environment. For example, practicing difficult conversations or public speaking in low-stake settings allows you to build tolerance for emotional discomfort and develop strategies for regulation. Over time, these experiences build confidence and decrease the likelihood of emotional overwhelm when faced with similar challenges in real life. This form of training also enhances neurochemical systems involved in stress regulation, such as increasing the efficiency of neurotransmitters like gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA, which exerts inhibitory control over excessive neuronal activity. Improved GABAergic function reduces hyperexcitability in emotional centers of the brain, promoting calm and balanced responses. Importantly, stress inoculation is most effective when applied progressively, respecting individual limits to avoid overwhelming the system. Gradual increases in intensity or complexity of stressors allow the brain to adapt without triggering maladaptive responses. This approach mirrors how muscles grow stronger by progressively lifting heavier weights. The nervous system becomes more robust through carefully calibrated challenges. Regularly incorporating stress inoculation into your routine not only improves emotional regulation, but also builds overall mental toughness. This means that your brain becomes better equipped to handle unpredictability and adversity, essential traits for navigating the complexities of daily life. Combining stress inoculation with other emotional training techniques, such as breathwork and focused attention, further amplifies its benefits. Breath control can help manage the immediate physiological responses during stress exposure, while attention training enhances awareness and intentionality in response selection. Over time, these practices create a neural environment that supports flexibility, resilience, and adaptive emotional responses. Your brain becomes less prone to rigid or exaggerated reactions and more capable of maintaining equilibrium even under pressure. This increased resilience not only benefits emotional health, but also cognitive performance, decision-making, and social interactions, contributing to overall well-being. By embracing controlled, repeated exposure to manageable stress, you actively train your brain to become stronger and more adaptable, transforming challenges into opportunities for growth and enhanced emotional control. Sleep plays a crucial role in emotional regulation and brain plasticity, making it an essential factor in training your brain for emotional control. During sleep, the brain undergoes processes that consolidate memories, process emotional experiences, and recalibrate neural circuits involved in stress and emotion. Without sufficient and high-quality sleep, these critical functions become impaired, leading to heightened emotional reactivity, decreased cognitive control, and increased vulnerability to anxiety and depression. One key aspect of sleep's impact on emotional regulation is the role of rapid eye movement, REM sleep, a stage characterized by vivid dreaming and an intense brain activity. During REM sleep, the brain processes emotional memories, integrating them with existing knowledge and reducing their emotional charge. This overnight therapy function helps decouple emotional intensity from memories, allowing you to respond to triggers in a more balanced way rather than being overwhelmed by past experiences. Disruption of REM sleep, whether through insufficient sleep, duration, or fragmentation, diminishes this processing, resulting in increased emotional sensitivity and difficulty managing stress. Non-REM sleep stages, particularly slow-wave sleep, also contribute to emotional regulation by supporting the restoration of the brain's prefrontal cortex. This area is responsible for executive functions such as attention, decision-making, and inhibitory control over the amygdala, the brain's emotional center. Deep sleep promotes recovery and metabolic clearance in prefrontal circuits, enabling them to maintain effective top-down regulation of emotions during waking hours. Without adequate deep sleep, the prefrontal cortex becomes less efficient, reducing your capacity to control impulses and manage emotional responses. Furthermore, sleep regulates the balance of neurotransmitters and hormones involved in stress and mood, such as cortisol and serotonin. Cortisol, often called the stress hormone, follows a circadian rhythm that is reset during sleep. Poor sleep disrupts this rhythm, leading to elevated baseline cortisol levels and exaggerated stress responses. This hormonal imbalance contributes to difficulty in emotional regulation and increases susceptibility to anxiety disorders. Good sleep hygiene practices, such as maintaining a consistent sleep schedule, minimizing exposure to blue light before bedtime, and creating a relaxing environment, support the natural sleep architecture essential for emotional health. Regular physical activity and stress management during the day also promote deeper and more restorative sleep cycles, enhancing the brain's ability to process emotions effectively. In addition to quantity and quality, timing of sleep is important. Aligning sleep patterns with natural circadian rhythms optimizes the function of brain regions involved in emotional regulation. Disruptions such as shift work, jet lag, or irregular sleep schedules can impair these rhythms, increasing emotional lability and reducing resilience to stress. Chronic sleep deprivation or poor quality sleep not only impairs immediate emotional control, but can also lead to long-term changes in brain structure and function. Studies have shown reductions in gray matter volume in areas related to emotion regulation and increased connectivity between the amygdala and stress-responsive circuits, which heightens emotional reactivity. This underscores the importance of prioritizing sleep as a foundational element in training the brain for emotional mastery. Integrating adequate sleep into your lifestyle supports the brain's natural processes of emotional recalibration and resilience building. Sleep acts as a daily reset button that refreshes your mental and emotional capacities, enabling clearer thinking, better decision-making, and more balanced emotional responses. Consistent, restorative sleep forms the biological groundwork upon which all other emotional regulation strategies build and function effectively.